So, to start off my presentation of Module 5, Exam 1, I went and I did questions 2, 3, 2, 3, and 4. Number 2, just to give like a general overview, whatnot, it gave us 4 different ways to draw a line on a graph. Now, I'm just trying to keep it simple, but on my paper, as you can see, I wrote on a graph, we want to show how to draw 4 different scenarios or lines. To find out how to draw these, we will need to remember rise over run and y equals mx plus b squared, because all of this comes from the y equals. And rise over runs kind of helps us out with 1 and number 2, also kind of number 10 too. And then in the first 2 scenarios, you'll see x is used for a placeholder in rise over run. Given no starting point, we'll assume that the starting point is 0. So these are examples. They're like not going to be exact. They're just examples on how to draw the lines. Now, as you can see, y equals x over 2. As in rise over run, positive, you'll have a positive slope, which it will generally just be a straight line because the slope goes over to the right. Since it's positive, positive goes up or to the right, negative goes down and to the left. But it's all positive, so it'll go up and to the right. And it'll pass through the point on the y-axis of 0 because we don't have a point set on the y-axis, so we're going to assume that it is 0. So we have x over 2, it'll just be a positive slope, and as you can see right here, that's why I have the positive slope. And you can read what I wrote over here. I'm just going to sum it all up for you in words. And number 2, you can see is I have a negative sign in front of the x over 2. That will be a negative slope. And it'll pass also through the vertex point 0 right here on the y-axis. And the slope will go down and to the right. And the only reason it goes down to the right and like not down to the left, because this negative sign will only go with one of these, okay? So it's going to go down and to the right. Now we have for number 3, y equals 10x. 10 is going to be the spot where we're going to start on the y-axis right here. We have the y-axis. We're going to start at about 10 or so. That'll be right there. And then this x is just pretty much like 1. It's like 1 over 1 or so. So rise over run, rise 1 over 1, positive. So we have the positive slope passing through point 10 on the y-axis. Now, for my next one is number 4. We have y equals x squared. Now, if you know anything about graphs, y and x squared will always be a parabola. Parabola is pretty much just like a U on the graph, okay? Now, there's no point here, so our starting point, we're gonna go with 0. So for the parabola, it'll pretty much be a U, but the bottom of the U, where it touches the x-axis, will be at 0. So right here, I drew me a nice little U, boom, it touches at the vertex, which is 0, and goes back up. And it goes up, it opens upward because it is positive. If it was negative, it would open downward, and it would be flipped on the other side. Still going through 0, but it would be flipped. Now for number 3. Number 3, this one gave us 3 different shapes, as you can see. Gave us 3 different shapes, and they wanted us to find the percent of the shaded portion. The question actually says, what percent and fraction of each of these figures is red? And that's why I have red in parentheses. But I shaded it in since I took a picture of this. So for number 1, we have a regular square, and I have the dark lines as the original picture, and then I have a dotted line for the other part. Oop, let's go back. There we go. Dotted line is for the ones that we added. So I will all this out so that way if you need any help, you can read it, but I'll just explain it real quick. We started out with a square. It was in 4 pieces, but this one piece right here, this is only 1/4 of it. It was only shaded halfway. So since this is shaded halfway, I'm gonna have to draw lines to separate the rest of them. Just like this 1/4 part is, I want to separate the rest of them like that. That's where the dotted lines come in at. Then all I have to do is count the whole and then the one that's shaded in. And then that's why I get my fraction 1/8, because now I separated it into 8 pieces and only one is shaded in. So 1 out of 8 is shaded in. Now, just to find the percent, we have a fraction 1 over 8. And as we know, the line in 1 over 8 simply means divide. So I come down here to divide. 1 divided by 8 equals 0.125. And if you want to make a decimal into a percent anytime, you will just take the decimal point, move it over to the right 2 spots. So we have it right here, boom, we bump it over, boom, boom. And then I bring it down here to my actual percent, which is 12.5%. Now for number 2, same thing, have the dotted lines for where I separated it just like the first part. But to begin with, there's 9 squares total, okay? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was a 3 by 3 square. Now we had 1, 2, 3, and then you have this little half colored in. So 3.5 out of 9 colored in. We're gonna make that easier to read. So since I have this half colored in, I'm gonna come over here, separate all the other squares in half, just like I did up here. And then instead of having 9 squares total, I have 18. Now we can count how many spots are shaded in. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 spots are shaded in out of 18. 18 new spots, 7 shaded in. So now my fraction is 7 over 18, as you can see. Now, don't forget, the 7 over 18 simply means same thing as 7 divided by 18. So we do that, and then we get 0.38, and I have a little line over the 8 because if you do that, it simply just means that that number continues on and on. That's all it means. But to make it a percent, remember, we just moved the decimal place over 2 spots. And since this 8 continues, we're going to round up, 0.5 and up, 5 and up rounds up to the next number. So 8 becomes a 9, and then that gives us 39%. Or if you want to get exact, you get 38.8%. But we're rounding up to a whole percent. Now, if you come down here to the last one, we have number 3. This one, it's a circle. You don't really have exact thing, but this one, as you can see, it's about half the circle shaded. It's kind of like a yin yang symbol, if you've ever seen one of those. If not, you can look one up. But half of it's light, half of it's dark. So we just have to look at this one and just be like, okay, hey, I see down here, half of it looks like it's shaded in, because we're generally just going to get close with it, because you'll never know 100% sure with the circle. But half of it's shaded in, half of it's not. So we're going to say 50% or 1/2, because 1/2 is the same thing as saying 50%. Now, on to the last one that I did for us. Given 4 different percents, then given a hexagon as a whole, we're going to try to find out what patterns match the percents. It's just a matching game, guys. We have the 4 different percents, which is 16.67, 19.2, 33.3, 38.5, and 50%. Oh, 5. I'm sorry, I cannot read. 5%. 5 different percents. And then right here, this is my whole. I have a hexagon. And then my 5 different patterns, we have a triangle, trapezoid, rhombus, and irregular rhombus, and then a square. Now, a trapezoid, as we all know, because I've done this in one of my other lessons, you can go through my YouTube videos, find out my other lessons, and I've shown you how these 3 right here fit in to a hexagon. A trapezoid fits into a hexagon equally twice. So 1 trapezoid would be 50% of a hexagon. I'm just going to keep this simple, kind of going to roll with it, because since this fits in there twice, you only put 1 in there, 50% of it will be taken up. Now, a rhombus, we're going to come over here to the rhombus. The rhombus will fit into a hexagon equally 3 times. And then if you only throw 1 rhombus in there, it'll be 1 out of 3. And then as I just showed you on question 3, how to make a percent out of it, we're going to do 1 divided by 3 will give us 33%. Now a triangle will fit into a hexagon equally 6 times. So we have 1 out of 6. 6 possibilities, but only 1 triangle. So 1 out of 6. You put that into percent form, 1 divided by 6, you'll get 16%. And then I just rounded these to whole percents. So if you want to get exact to what it'll be 16.67. And then for number two, it'll be 33.3. And then number one is exactly 50%. So we have those done. Those are done. We're going to kind of cross these out in our minds. Boom, that one's done, that one's done, and that one's done. And then we're left with 19.2 and 38.5. For the last two patterns, we'll use process of elimination. As I just showed you, boom, 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 we knocked out those three. And then we have 19 and 38% left. The square is obviously bigger, guys. We're going to just use our brains because once we already have the percents given to us, we don't really need to figure out exactly which ones they are because that's just wasting our time. We already have the answers up there. We just need to match them. So the square, obviously bigger than the irregular rhombus. So we want the bigger percent to go with the bigger shape, obviously. So the square is going to get the 38%. And then we're going to give the 19% to the irregular rhombus. That's just how it's going to work, guys. There's no point in trying to rack your brains trying to figure out exactly what percent because they give it to you. So let's not work any harder than we have to. And that's all that I have for us today. I want to thank you so much for listening and for staying with me through this whole module. Thank you very much, guys.